Tonight, the power company facing a financial cliff. The minister responsible sounding the alarm in Parliament as government announcing a rate increase come November. Plus, why the former Prime Minister says the cost hike could have been avoided. And new tonight, a man arrested after an off-duty police officer is shot. We've got the latest on his condition. Then at 7:30, teachers taking their protest against the school principal to the House of Assembly. Our News at 7 starts now. Welcome to Our News and thanks for joining us. I'm Kendino Knowles. The minister responsible for BPL laying all the cards on the table in Parliament today, explaining that the power company is financially strained. Now, Minister Sayers says the power company's legacy financial issues are only getting worse and defended a rate increase he says could help keep BPL from collapse. Bethany McDermott has the story.
Works and Utilities Minister Alfred Sears was frank in Parliament today as he told parliamentarians Bahamas Power and Light is in a dangerous financial position. The revelation explains the reason behind BPL's decision to hike up power bills.
BPL is on the precipice of financial fallout, Mr. Deputy, if we do not act immediately to align the fuel charge.
On Monday, Prime Minister Philip Davis announced consumers could expect to see an increase in their November power bills, adding that it's a move that could no longer be delayed. Sears explained the fuel hedging strategy implemented under the former administration was working, but then things changed.
The majority fuel being used by BPL today has increased within this past year by 100%.
The Works Minister also told Parliament there seems to be no sign of relief in the market. And to make matters worse came the ongoing war between Russia and Ukraine and the exit from the pandemic, causing fuel prices to skyrocket with no sign of a decline.
Continuing in this manner has become untenable to our power provider, and the company must now move to adjust the monthly fuel charge.
In his address Tuesday, the Prime Minister announced measures to mitigate the increase, like the removal of VAT from power bills under $400, among other things. Sears contends that while the move may not be popular, it is necessary.
I assure this Honourable House, as our Honourable Prime Minister did yesterday, that deferring it or refusing to do it will create greater hardships down the road, or, worst case scenario, result in the catastrophic failure of BPL.
Reporting for Our News, I'm Bethany McDermott.
And the rise in monthly BPL bills has former Prime Minister Dr. Hubert Minnis charged up. The former Prime Minister reacting outside of Parliament this morning, saying the hike in BPL rates could have been avoided. Dr. Minnis insisting his administration had a plan to reduce the cost of electricity for Bahamians, and he's accusing the Davis-led government of failing to continue those plans.
The businesses will also suffer. They will have an increased cost, which means they run the possibility of laying off individuals. The restaurants, the food costs at restaurants will increase. The mom and pop shops will increase. This Prime Minister, we cannot believe when he said that there'll be no tax increase, but real property tax increase, mortgages increase as a result of what he has done, fuel charge increase, so electricity bills has increased as a result of what he has done. He cannot be trusted.
And the former Prime Minister is not the only opposition member fired up over the BPL issue. Our Jamila Missick spoke with the current leader of the Free National Movement today, and he's calling on the Davis administration to come clean about the state of the power company. We'll have a full report coming up at 7:30. Meanwhile, the owner of a popular eatery says he's not surprised that BPL decided to increase its rates. The Bush Cook owner, Corey Small, had this reaction.
It's almost like taxes. It's never a good time to pay bills, you know. You just have to take a look at it and see what's happening. I guess the government to make the decision. And I know that this has been in the pipe work a long time from the rate reduction bond under the previous administration. So I guess now they got caught with the baby. So now they got to deal with it.
Now, small is not the only business owner reacting to the increased rate. We have more reaction from business owners coming up in Our News at 7:30 with Atalia Hall. Well, the Davis administration is now one step closer to repealing the Public Procurement Act. Prime Minister Philip Davis tabling the new bill in Parliament this morning, saying his government's version of the bill will provide for more transparency and efficiency in the issuing of government contracts.
The bill that I propose to introduce, when enacted, would repeal and replace the Public Procurement Act 2021. This act, the 2021 Procurement Act, was rushed through the consultation and legislative process and came into force 2 weeks before the end of the last administration.
In opposition, PLP MPs voted to pass the public procurement bill in March 2021. That act subsequently came into force in September that year after the then Minister administration was announced, or accused, that is, of taking too long to implement the law. In August of this year, Attorney General Ryan Pinder revealing the government will fully rewrite the Public Procurement Act 2021 because of what he called troublesome aspects of the current legislation. Today, the Prime Minister defended the need to repeal.
Much has been said about this administration's stance on public procurement. Much of it untrue. This administration is committed to fair and transparent public procurement.
Well, it's time now for your first look at temperatures across the country. Meteorologist Greg Thompson is standing by in the Weather Center. Greg?
Yeah, thanks, Kendino. Beautiful evening on the outdoors right now. Temperatures very comfortable, 82 degrees outside under mostly clear skies. Your winds out of the north at 9 miles per hour and your feels like temperature hanging out in the low 80s, 80 degrees outside. Temperatures around the family of islands right now in the northwest Bahamas. Very beautiful conditions out there as well. Not much in terms of any clouds. 81 in Freeport, Marsh Harbour 83. We pick up 83 also on Alistown, Bimini. 79 in Great Harbour Key. 81 in Nicholstown, here in the capital, 82, 84 across in Governor's Harbour. Temperatures in the central Bahamas, also in the mid-80s there with the exception. Kemps Bay at 82, 85s in Arthurstown, Cat Island, Georgetown, 86, 87 in Deadman's Key, Coburn Townsend, Salvador, you guys at 85, and into the southeast Bahamas, temperatures also a little comfortable down there as well. Low to mid-80s, 85 in Duncantown, Ragged Island. Pick up a pair of, well, actually 83 in Colonel Hill, Crooked Island. Delectable Bay, you guys at 86. 84s, Abrahams Bay, Providenciales, Turks and Caicos Islands, 85. And Matthew Town in Deep South, your temperature right now is at 82. Satellite-wise, that front boundary that was across the southeast Bahamas now exiting, most of the activity pulling towards the east and away from us. But we do have a reinforcing boundary across the northwest Bahamas. Not too much in terms of any clouds with it. A couple of spotty showers mainly across the Key Sal Bank. But that frontal boundary will continue to push towards the south. Beautiful conditions expected tonight through tomorrow. That's your quick first look at weather. Stay with us. A look at the tropics and your extended forecast is still to come.
Still to come on Our News, a police officer shot outside a Wolf Road business, the latest on his condition. Police piecing together a string of armed robberies, how you can protect yourself, plus why the F&M deputy leader is saying we are in a crime crisis. It's all coming up when Our News returns. Now to an update on that police officer who was shot in an armed robbery attempt yesterday. At last check, he was in stable but serious condition. Police say the shooting happened at a food store in the area of Wolf Road. Officer in charge of the Central Detective Unit, Chief Superintendent Michael Johnson, says 2 men attempted to rob the food store when the off-duty officer intervened. One of the men produced a firearm and police say shot the officer in his upper body.
Shortly after, the police, being very responsive and quickly acting on information received, went into the Baintown area where they apprehended one of the suspects. A firearm was recovered, and so that male is now assisting us with our investigation. Again, we appeal to members of the public, especially coming down to the Christmas season. You must be on the alert and be aware of your surroundings.
Opened 3 armed robbery investigations after several people, including an American couple, were held up at gunpoint on Tuesday. Police say the first incident occurred shortly after midnight when a man who was walking on Chesapeake Road was robbed of his wallet and cell phone by 2 men carrying handguns. Police say the suspects escaped in a black Honda Fit. The second incident happening just before 5 a.m. in the Corridor Avenue area. That's when police say a 51-year-old man in a green Nissan March was reportedly approached by 3 men in a silver Honda Accord. One of the men was armed with a handgun, and police say the victim was robbed of not only his car but also his wallet. Now, around the same time, several miles away in western New Providence, police say 3 men, including a gunman, approached an American couple as they were outside their vacation home. The couple was robbed of cash and an iPhone. Police are asking for the public's help in solving these cases by contacting Crime Stoppers at 328-TIPS. And as the country's murder count continues to soar, Free National Movement Deputy Leader Shannon Don Cartwright says it's clear the country has a crisis on its hands. His comments come a week after the nation hit a grim milestone when the 100th murder was recorded 5 days ago. Cartwright says that's concerning.
This crime crisis is something that has been heartbreaking to the Bahamian people. Our government's fundamental priority is to ensure that their people and their communities are safe. In March of this year, the opposition would have made 14 recommendations to the government to assist in trying to combat this scourge of crime. At that time, there was 22 murders in the Commonwealth of the Bahamas. Since then, we are talking about 75 plus murders in the Commonwealth of the Bahamas, but yet there is no comprehensive plan.
Now, Cartwright was referring to an urgent conclave that the Prime Minister called in March when there was a sharp increase in murders. The opposition was a part of that meeting, making several recommendations at the time. But Cartwright, who is also Shadow Minister for National Security, says in his eyes the Davis administration has dropped the ball.
Not one piece of significant piece of policy or piece of legislation to help deal with this issue that continues to be a debilitating issue throughout our communities as bodies continue to drop in the Commonwealth of the Bahamas.
Now, in addition to pointing out what he terms a crisis, Cartwright also outlining what he thinks can be done to fix the issue. We've got that angle, as well as the Prime Minister discussing crime-fighting plans coming up in Our News at 7:30. When Our News comes back from the break, we turn our spotlight to stories making headlines across the world as search and rescue missions continue in Florida after Hurricane Ian. Plus, preconditions for Haiti before leaders attend the CARICOM meeting set for the Bahamas. And changing how we experience Shakespeare. We've got all the details when Our News returns. This is Our News. Welcome back. Our trip around the world begins in neighboring Florida, where search and rescue teams from around the United States are combing the rubble in Fort Myers Beach for those missing from Category 4 Hurricane Ian a week ago. The area, once known for blue waters and seaside buildings, is the scene of a desperate search for the missing who remained during the storm. Around the state, over 300,000 homes and businesses are still without power, and insurers are bracing for a $57 billion price tag in storm damage. but the human death toll remains inconclusive even now. Search and rescue team members like Ignacio Carroll are moving fast to help survivors.
We want to get to those that have run out of medication, those who maybe are trapped in their homes because of the debris. Try to either get them out or to check on their well-being, and don't want to wait for daylight. You want to start hitting the ground running as soon as it is safely possible.
Security forces in Indonesia facing mounting questions in their roles in a soccer match tragedy which left 131 people, including 33 children, dead. Fans attempting to escape the chaos last Saturday at the Kanjuruhan Stadium were trapped when security failed to open multiple exits. When fans clashed with police, security forces responded by firing tear gas. The public anger stems from questions about excessive force while attempting to remove fans from the field. It is believed panicking fans tried to flee the tear gas, leading to a crush at the exits. Indonesian President Joko Widodo is hoping a thorough investigation will avert future disasters.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi.
I send my deepest condolences to the death of 129 people. Our brothers and sisters in the football tragedy of the Kanjuruhan Stadium, Malang, East Java. I have asked the Minister of Health and Governor of East Java to monitor closely the medical services conducted for the victims being treated to get the best treatment. I have also asked the Minister of Sports and Police Chief, as well as head of PSSI, to evaluate thoroughly football matches and its security procedures. I have specially requested the police chief to investigate and get to the bottom of this case.
Moving a little closer to home, there may not be enough of the right kind of exposure attracting visitors to this region. In response, the Caribbean Hotel and Tourism Association is shifting its strategy next year. They call it multi-destination tourism, and the goal is to present the Caribbean as a multi-destination experience, much like Europe. President of the Caribbean Hotel and Tourism Association, Nicola Madden-Gregg, announced the strategy change while responding to suggestions that resorts and amenities were overshadowing actual destinations. She admitted that travel advisors are not always aware of the diversity and differences of the islands, and tourism experts are now meeting in Puerto Rico this week for the Caribbean Travel Forum. And finally, the European Union told you are out of place for blacklisting countries on the contentious issues of anti-money laundering and counter-financing of terrorism. The public rebuke coming from Marla Ducaran, a Trinidadian economist in Barbados. Her comments came from a request by the European Commission for feedback on the thorny issue of tax evasion. Ducaran also telling the EU they were out of place by assigning themselves authority they did not have. Her submission also questioning the right of the EU to tell another sovereign country what level of taxes it should apply, while countries like Ireland and Hungary are free to do as they like. Prime Minister Philip Davis also spoke about this issue recently at the UN General Assembly. Well, the Prime Minister also providing an update on the CARICOM meeting to be held to discuss the ongoing issues in Haiti in August. Deputy Prime Minister Chester Cooper confirmed the Bahamas will host a meeting with CARICOM leaders this year to discuss the deteriorating situation in Haiti. Cooper said the Haitian Prime Minister is expected to attend that meeting, and Davis says some preconditions have to be fulfilled before the meeting is held.
Well, I'm awaiting. There's some preconditions that have to be fulfilled before we meet here, and those are in train. And once those are completed, I'll be in a better position. Those meetings will happen.
Still to come on Our News, today in history, find out the interesting facts about the day that was October 5th. Plus, Greg is back with your extended weather forecast. And then at 7:30, the minister makes his case for the rising cost of energy. It's all coming up when Our News returns. Welcome back to Our News. Some interesting facts to note about this day in history. In 2005, a huge mudslide triggered by Hurricane Ian, or Hurricane Stan that is, engulfed dozens of homes in Guatemala's Maya Indian Highlands, killing some 2,000 people. In this photo, villagers inspect a road made impassable by floodwaters in Cocales, Guatemala. Huge mudslides, flooding, and torrential rains from Hurricane Stan killed at least 162 people in Central America and southern Mexico. Also, in 2008, the world saw the largest Lego tower ever built in Vienna. This picture showing the Lego tower standing at 29.48 meters in front of City Hall. The tower beat the previous record of 29.3 meters. And then in 2011, Apple co-founder and former CEO Steve Jobs died after a years-long and highly public battle with cancer and other health issues. He was 56. In this photo, carnations placed before a computer screen showing a portrait of Jobs at an Apple store in St. Petersburg. He is counted among the greatest American CEOs of his generation. And here at home, today marks the 12th anniversary of a plane crash that has been described as one of the worst air disasters in Bahamian history. On October 5, 2010, 9 men died when a Cessna aircraft headed for San Salvador for the Discovery Day weekend festival crashed into waters at Lake Killarney. Among the victims, pilot Nelson Hannon, Nathaniel Williams, Chet Johnson, Corey Farquharson, Junior Lubin, Devon Storr, Shanoin Milo, Delon Taylor, and LaVard Curtis. An investigation into the flight revealed the twin-engine plane was 523 pounds overweight. And because there was no voice recorder on board, investigators had no idea of their last moments alive. At the time of the incident, we spoke with Muriel Sullivan about the pilot, who he remembered as one of the best in the industry. Activist and musician Tennille Burrows also at the time remembering the life of well-known sound technician Nat Williams.
It's a burden right now, especially, in the aviation family out there. Everyone is tight-knit, everyone knows one another, so, it's not good right now. Everyone is grieving, and me and him were in communication, I think, as late as Saturday, I think it was. We spoke about me helping him out on his days off.
Nat was one of the foremost founders of the Bahamian sound engineering industry. He's done work with everyone. Caribbean Gospel Music Marlon Awards, the Music Momentum Summit, Fam Fest was a close affiliate of his, and he was definitely like fat and jolly. And he was like one of the daddies, big brothers type of thing in the industry.
And we honor their lives and the lives of all the men lost in that plane crash as their memories live on with their families and friends. Well, students were on the edge of their seats this morning while viewing the Shakespeare in Paradise adaptation of William Shakespeare's Richard III. Marlena Leonard has their reaction tonight.
Actors were met with a roar of applause from students at the curtain call of a Richard III matinee, with many students noting after the show that the performance has changed the way they view Shakespeare.
I honestly never watched a play like that, and it was very different, and it made me comprehend Shakespeare 10 times more.
The inclusion of matinees for students is not a new addition to the Shakespeare in Paradise lineup, but title role actor David Burrows says the student matinees are especially important this year.
This play is just added to the syllabus, which means that all of the kids that are studying for the BJCSE is studying Richard III. So it's crucially important, and of course the way that we did it makes it extremely accessible to the kids, and it helps them to understand it.
And students say getting to experience the performance made all the difference.
Shakespeare in general, I never really understand it, but when I came and watched it live, it was very good. I enjoyed it, and I'll watch more.
And the adaptation really does create an immersive experience for audiences. Between the fact that audiences are seated practically on stage with the show, and the fact that the actors change their costumes and their roles in front of the audience.
The choice to take an experimental angle with only 3 actors and narration was explained to us after the show by co-writer and director Aaron Knowles McKinney.
I figured if I approach it in such a way where it's relatable, they can hear a voice that they understand in between the scenes, it would be memorable for them, it would be relevant, it would be something that they can talk about critically and analyze it, especially for the students.
And the choice clearly worked wonders, with students even flocking for autographs after the show. October 6th is your last opportunity to see Richard III. You can find tickets through shakespeareinparadise.org. Reporting for Our News, I'm Marlena Leonard.
Thanks, Marlena. And to watch that story again and for all of today's top stories, visit ournews.bs.